we're just going to spend some time reminding ourselves, especially for those who maybe haven't worked with young children for a long time, or ever, how we work with young children. So we're going to give you some practical tips and reminders about how best to work with young children. And then the rest of the session is all about giving you some tips about how to combine the time activities. And actually, we want to hear from you as well, because you feed into this model, and we can then help others. So we're going to talk a bit about how you can combine the time activities when you're working in a tutor setting. We're going to talk a little bit and hear from you how you are using the activity record. And hopefully you can give each other some tips, how best to use that. And then on the actual activities, on the actual time activities, we're just going to go in not detail, but give you some more tips on how you can tutor the story time activities and how you can tutor the drawing and writing activities. So that's the plan for the hour. Okay. So I'm aware that, well, I'm not sure, but there might be those of you who have, sorry, I wasn't meant to go into that yet. Those of you who have already been orientated to time, or if you didn't come to our sessions, I know the Labone tutors, Kathy or RJ, would have, orientated you to it. So we're aware that you came to an orientation. This obviously is not an orientation, but it's an opportunity to give you some more practical tips on actually how to use the material. So what you see on the screen here is just a reminder in case you actually forgot that it exists. So as you may know, the Time Home Learning Program is a home learning program. So it was designed to go into homes, and parents get to do maths and language activities every day, or whenever. Well, it's written for 5 days a week, but it's written as daily activities. Now, we know that when you choose to use time as a tutoring tool, that's not possible. So what we know that tutors will use the materials a little bit differently. You're going to have to combine sessions. Because you're tutoring, you're going to have to do some more preparation beforehand. And because you're tutoring, and as I said earlier on, you may not have worked with young children before, we wanted to give you some tips for that. So we created what you see on the screen here, which is what we've called Notes for Tutors. And I'm just showing you very briefly where this is sitting on the website. And we'll give you the website again later if you haven't been able to jot it down. So when you go to the Time website, this is where you will land. And then there's there's a couple of containers, but you go for the container that says Time for Tutors and Teachers. And you'll see we've got it separated there. So you go to the tutor section, and I'm just going to put, pardon me, put this on full screen. And there it is. So these are notes that you can download. And just briefly, I did share this with the group if you came to the orientation session. So I don't want to repeat it too much, but just to give you an indication that it's made up of some background knowledge, so you get some insight in how children learn and how that it's a journey and you've got to support them, right? So there's a lot of background information. There's some information how you can work with young children. We're going to talk about some of those tips today. And then we've allocated a few pages just giving you some tips on how to get ready for every activity. And like I said, we're going to take some of these tips out today, right? And there's some tips on how to get prepared. And I think the last page is just another tip of when you are working with a small group of children and not one-on-one, like a parent would work in a home. So we would love you to make use of this resource. Share. yeah, we'd love you to make use of that resource. You can download it for your team. It's only a few pages, and only the cover is in color, so you don't even have to print it in color. Okay, so everything that we're going to talk about today is mentioned in the notes, and we hope that you can use that. I know Labone gave us some good feedback to the Labone team. I spoke to Kathy a while ago, and she was saying, because time is written, per day, it is sometimes challenging for tutors to facilitate it. So that's what these notes are for. So if you can just make a note where you're sitting, to maybe down to get your program coordinator or manager to print a set for you. Okay. All right. So now we're actually going to go into our session today. Yeah, and just forgive me if I'm looking to the side. I just have my notes here. Okay, so on the screen, we've put up some notes for you to think about when you're working with young children, to think about what's the physical environment, what kind of things should you consider physically, like with the stationery and the equipment, and then to think about how you actually engage with the children in the session. So I'm just going to, as I read it, I really would like you, hopefully you've got a pen and paper there. I'd like you just to make notes, things that stand out for you, or something that you'd like to action so that you don't forget about it. Okay. And then there's a question at the bottom that we're going to share together. So keep this in your mind as we talk. Can you see the question at the bottom? Are there any changes you could make in the way you work with the children in your tutoring program? So have that at the back of your mind. Okay, so when you're working with young children, you obviously want to think about how you arrange the tables and chairs. We've always suggest that you are at the same level as the children, that the way you've arranged the chairs and the tables is in a way that you can see all of them and they can see all of you. You might already be doing that, but just an alert that it's important that you have access to all children, because you're not necessarily working one-on-one, but you want everybody to feel like you're engaging with them equally, not feel like, know that. And then the second point is not new to you. We're very aware that young children, we're talking grade R, grade 1, maybe some grade 2 children that you work with, they can't concentrate for long. So while the time activities are all interactive and playful and fun, they might still get fidgety, and we want you to be mindful that that's the way young children are made. They can't sit still for long. So they can't concentrate for long. So just as a little tip to know that once you've done one activity, get up, do an action, sing a song, say a rhyme, so that you help them, get back into the right frame of mind again to do the next activity. So always be mindful that they can't concentrate for long. And then if you're in a tutor setting and you've got it set up for that, remember that you can still change the settings that you work in. So for example, when it's story time, especially the read aloud stories or even the little book stories, and it's a lovely day, can you go outside? Or can you create a little corner in the space that you've got that's a little bit cozier and comfortable, and maybe there's some mats, pillows there, and maybe when it's story time, you can take them there. So think about how you can change your setting so that they're not only sitting at the table all the time with you. But remember, when they are writing, you want them to be on a firm surface, so the table is the best place to work on. And then just a few points about how you actually engage with the children. Now, those of you you all are working with the materials already. You'll know that every activity in the parent guide, there are questions. there's an instruction to the parent. You will be the caregiver now, the tutor. For example, if it's a big book, not a big book, a big picture story, we'll say, have a look at the picture story and ask these questions. Or if it's a read aloud story, we would say something like, read the story to the children, and then what do we say afterwards? And then ask these questions. What we want to caution you on is that those questions have been thought through, yes, but when you ask them, ask it in a way that is conversational and not like a test or a comprehension test. A little tip, I think the HSP team from WordWorks must just help me. What do you call that? I know it's something that you actually, there's a term you use when there's back and forth.
Conversational turns.
Conversational turns, that's right. Thank you, Colleen. So the question is there, but don't use it as a, where did Tina go? And then you wait for an answer, I'm using Tina because that's the story we're going to listen to. So you ask, where did Tina go? And then if the children don't speak, you say, did she go to the shop? Or where else do you think she, so you use it as a tool to go, I'm giving my opinion and you giving yours. That is quite a skill. Maybe a session needs to be allocated for that. But please remember, you're not testing. It's not a comprehension test. The questions are for you to start the conversation. And a little tip I always like to say to tutors, one of the ways you can do that is to always give your opinion. So you ask the question, but you always give your opinion when they've also said. So they give an answer and you say, yes, and I think, what do you think? So that you're bouncing back and forth. That's the one tip when you engage with children. So the second point there is, be mindful that the children, this you will know, that the children who come to your center, your after-school program, may not be getting tutored in the language that's their own. And we know the value of a child's home language, the child's mother tongue. So we will want to encourage you, even if you are tutoring, you're obviously tutoring in the language that the school, the lot of the school, the learning and the language of learning and teaching. But when you are working in that language and you are talking about the pictures, or you engaging the children on their writing, let the children respond in the language that's their own. If you understand that language yourself, so let's say the child says "ipensile," because they're pointing to a pencil that's in the picture, and you say yes. And in English, we call that a pencil. It's as simple as that. So please acknowledge what children bring, so that you can build the language that they're not the most comfortable with. So that's the second tip. And then these last 2 points on this slide is something that you would have heard us say all the time. It's how we know children work. Children work when they get good feedback. Children learn, when they get good feedback. They learn when what they are doing is affirmed and not overcorrected. Now, the people in the room, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure about all the tutors at Labone, but I know Sunila, when you used to work with Ready Steady, Read Write, it was the same. It was always what we asked the tutors to be mindful of. You are not the teacher, you are supporting the learning. So you give them opportunity to express themselves. It's not about how correct or incorrect their language is or their writing is. It's the fact that you affirm their efforts. You affirm what they've done. Okay, so I'm going to pause a little bit. And I want you to have a look at that question at the bottom. And even like the group that's at Labone, you could even talk to each other because you're sitting behind one screen. Are there any changes based on what I just briefly shared? Are there any changes you could make in the way you work with children? Have a look, write it down, and then we're just going to do a quick go around and hear what you have to say. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to put the discussion slide up with all our names on it. We'll keep that for later, but I'd love to just hear maybe from one, two or three of our colleagues, anything that stood out for you and anything you really want to action. Or maybe you're already doing all of the above and you just want to say, oh, I'm so pleased, this just affirms what I've been doing. So let's hear. Sunila, your camera on, you want to chat?
I'm sitting here in the sun, sorry. Yes, Pauline, there is something that concerns me. Now, remember, I don't coordinate or tutor. I'm just overseeing the project. So when I
Yeah.
do sit in, there's something that I have tried for 2 years now to change, and that is the tutors and the coordinators have difficulty in being on the same level with the children. Their
Are
teacher
you talking
training
about the
they've
physical?
done physically, yeah. The
Physical.
teacher training that they had done during their ECD qualification or whatever, there's always this talking down to a child.
Hmm.
And it's something that I'm finding challenging to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand where it comes from because all the teachers that they are observing at the moment is also following that approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's something that I am working on, and I'm going to
Mm.
stress again. So thank you for bringing this
Mm.
topic up.
Mm.
It's something I would have to enforce.
Mm. Thank you for that, Sunila. And I think you're right. People model, a
Mm, mm,
volunteer, they model maybe what they see. And I think one thing we must remember is that not that teachers have to talk down to children, that's not what I mean,
yes,
is that
yes,
a tutor, and I hope a tutor setup is very different to a teacher setup.
yes,
The way
yes.
that you engage. So it's good just to keep flipping that switch, for them. But thank you for raising it. Yeah. I'm just sorry that I'm looking, but I was trying to make notes of what you were saying. Can't find my pen.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I'm not sure if anybody else wants to add anything or we can go on.
Shanaz's hand is up.
Oh, so thank you, Colin. Shanaz, is that a hand that you want us to respond to? I thought it was up earlier, actually. Shanaz? Okay.
Maybe it's from earlier, yeah.
Maybe it's from earlier. Thanks, Colin. Okay. So I hope that little those notes just make you think about, as Sunila indicated, how you engage with children. Okay. This is also something that's in the notes for tutors, the one that I just showed you, and it's the kind of language. It's really what Sunila was alluding to. It's the kind of language that we want to hear, that we would love you to use when you are talking to children. And just so that you aren't so tired of listening to my voice, I was just wanting to know if anybody, maybe somebody from the Labone group, someone could just read out some of those phrases we've got on the screen. The phrases you can use to encourage children to keep trying and to affirm their efforts. Can someone read that?
Hello.
Yes.
Um, I will start reading to everyone.
Thank you. Who am I speaking? Who are we speaking to?
It's Yolene. It's Yolene again.
Thank you, my dear.
Helpful phrases to affirm and encourage children. Well done. I love how you are trying. Thank you for. Keep going, trying. I like your ideas. I like the way you are thinking.
That was said with such oomph. Thank you. Doug, I see you behind the screen there. Could you let us know? We can't hear you, Doug. We just would like to know where you're from, because I never got a chance to meet you at the beginning of the session. Are you able just to unmute your mic, or if you can't, you can type into the chat. Okay. Thank you. That was said with such, I was thinking when you were reading that, when an adult's work or attempts are affirmed, how uplifting and encouraging it isn't that for us? So can you imagine for a young child who's learning to do these big skills of drawing, of writing and of reading, and then they get this affirmation from their tutor. The biggest job of a tutor is to make children feel like they are progressing, and that they are getting better. And that's what we're doing. Thank you, Colin. We'll hope Doug can respond to that. Okay. So now we want to move on to talking a bit about how you would combine the time activities in your tutor setting. I said this earlier, that tutors don't work with children daily as it would be if you were a parent or a family member. And the activities are written per day. So what we've done here on this slide is to say, think about how you would combine the time activities in the sessions that you have, and you all run very differently. So if you look on the screen here, we imagined if you met the children 3 times a week. Now, Shanaz is working in a school that's part of a project, and that they call them grade R academies, and they see the children thrice a week. And so we had suggested to them that they could combine the activities like this. So on the first day that they meet the children in the week, they could do the day 1 activities, which is story time, and the day 2 activities, which is drawing and writing, because they see the children for an hour, and we thought those 2 activities they could do. Then on the next time that the children come back to the academy or the program, they would obviously recap what they did the previous session, and then they get to do the looking and listening activities and the games activity, which is day 3 and day 4. And then we suggested on the 3rd day of the week, when the children come back, that they do the last time activity, which is shapes, letters, and numbers. And obviously that's not going to take up a whole hour, and then they can complete any of the previous day's activities, or they could repeat. So that was a suggestion we gave to a after school program that sees the children thrice a week. You may not see them. We're going to hear from you very soon. And then just at the bottom, although you are working in a tutor setting, time was always, the intention of time is that it goes home, that we equip, and we know it's not easy. We know there are challenges, but that we start believing, if we don't already, that parents can help their children. So in a tutor setting with time, we would like you to think about, you are tutoring the children on certain days for sessions a week. Think about, how could you engage the home? What kinds of activities could you send home? So there are 2 questions on the screen. How do you combine the time activities to suit your tutor setting? And the second question is, how do you manage this sending some activities home, and this relationship with the home and the after school program? So now I'm going to put up on the screen, I know you're going to have to think about it. So while I am, excuse me. So on the screen, I've just got our slide up so that we've got everybody in the room here. We're going to give everybody a chance to just share how you do combine the activities and how you manage to keep this connection between the home, the parent, and yourself. Okay, so your name's up on the screen. In fact, anybody can start, and then we'll decide where we're going to go. So who's going to share first with us?
Pauline, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello, Doug.
Hello, sorry, I've been messing around with my phone. Listen, Pauline, what my big problem is the language problem. You know, the kids that I teach are Xhosa kids, and I can't speak Xhosa. And they talk Xhosa, but I don't know what they're talking about. It's a big problem to me.
Yeah. Doug, where are you from? Where are you helping children?
From Grahamstown. I volunteer at Laboni.
Oh, so you with the Labone Center?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Doug, for sharing that. I'm going to I've written it down, right? I've written it down so that when we're done, we can share some of that. It's about the language. Yeah.
Thank you, Pauline.
Yeah, we've written that down. So what we talking about now is about the combining the activities, and are you managing to send some home? We just want to hear from you.
Pauline, I think the problem is that a lot of the children, well, the children I deal with are from single family homes. And I don't know if the parents have got the time to spend with their children, which is a big problem.
Yeah. Which is why places like Labone run tutor sessions so that you're standing in the gap. Yeah. Right. Thank you, Doug. Thank you for sharing that. Since Doug started, I wonder if we can go to the left. Sunila, your name's next. Are you going to share anything? Any of your thoughts?
Hi.
Shanaz.
Hi, Pauline.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, can I speak?
Please do, and then Sunila can go after you.
Oh, sorry, I was interrupting. Sorry, man, sorry.
No problem.
Okay. What we're doing here with our combination is we have like the storytelling is always first, and then we do a little bit of the storytelling, and we also, before we start, we have a song that we sing. Just calm them down in the afternoon. Because of the hustle and the bustle during the day. And then we have a song like, hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? How are you this afternoon? Something like that, just to create the afternoon aftercare vibe atmosphere again.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we would go about the storytelling, and then we would ask them in the discussion, and then obviously the discussion goes into the extension that they know of, closer to them, closer to the home, or what the like, this is me, the topic, this is me, the book. Then they would talk about themselves closer to home so they can understand. And that takes about 15 minutes. And then afterwards we go into the drawing and writing part.
Yeah.
And then tell them the drawing and writing part. Now they need to draw themselves now. And what do they see on themselves first? Where do you start first? Some would say the head, some would say the body, some would say the hands, and then so on. But they have an idea, that's part of them, that they have to draw. And then when the drawing is done, then they would say, this is me, but then they would draw something else with, this is me, I'm looking at the flower, is me
Yeah.
with a dog. This is me helping my mommy. This is me. They extending their own picture.
Yeah.
You see, and that is what is nice. What
So,
comes out of it,
yeah.
and
So
after that, then we
Shanaz,
just yes.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, okay. And then after that, we just recap the day done, and then the afternoon is done. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's very struggling for them because one or two of them so maybe tired of the day, and then
Mm,
the,
Yeah.
the
mm,
overjoying again, like getting that
mm.
extra excitement again of the afternoon. Um,
Yes.
then some of them don't want to go even home; they want to stay
Yeah.
here with the afternoon or so, you know.
Yeah.
So that
Lovely.
is yeah, that is now in a nutshell
Yeah.
how we
So
do.
you do. So you, from listening to you, you explained your session one particularly. So you do actually combine it in the way we kind of encouraged you, hey, to combine
Yes, yes,
those
yeah,
activities. Great.
yes.
Thank you, Shana. Sunila, you were going to share.
Yes,
So again,
Pauline.
sorry.
Yeah,
Can you
Sunila.
hear
It's
me?
Sunila's. Yeah, we
Okay,
can.
okay.
Um, right. So our dynamic might be a bit different because we're
Yeah.
working with two schools currently. The foundation is just the bridge between the school and the home. So that's what we have in mind. And so what we do is we provide the resources on behalf of the schools, but we sort of the middleman to help the parent and the child.
Mm,
So
mm.
what we do is because the one school has four of each grade R and grade one class, and then the other school is just one each, we have one session per group per week. So that
One
limits
session.
us, yeah,
Yeah.
with time,
Mm.
you see,
So
meaning
you
we have
basically
very
have,
little.
yeah,
We've got to sort of cover the week's activities in that one
in
session.
an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what we do
How do you
is
do it? How do you do it?
yeah, so
Mm,
it's been tricky, but the team is really good. So what we do is we brought in some volunteers. So they act as our tutors together with the coordinator, the main tutor. So
mm,
we start off with the story and the questioning, and between the activities, the children, we acknowledge the number concept activities, the counting, the rhymes, the songs.
Oh,
So that
mm.
brings a break in
A
each
break,
activity.
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the walking in, the leaving is all a rhyme, a song, a counting, or some sort of activity. And we like to incorporate what you've included for that week.
Yeah. The
So
rhymes in
if
the
it
week. In yes.
Yes, so
Yes.
according to that theme or whatever's going
Yeah.
on in the week. And then our focus is the story
Mm.
and the writing and the drawing. So we try to get that done within,
The hour.
say, 30 to 40
Mm,
minutes. And
mm.
then the others is the explanation of the games and whatever. And if they
Okay.
can, of course, play it, then they will play it. But that
Okay.
gets sent home. So
Okay. So
all
that's a.
all
Mm,
the like the alphabet writing, the letter writing, those are
mm,
things that the children know how to do. So
do
they would just use the Play-Doh, or they would walk it or march it or draw it on their backs, but the actual activity gets sent home.
that center. So Nila, so this is
Yeah.
interesting. Thank you for that feedback. Because so now that the materials are in book form, so they do the
Mm.
story, as you say, the story form, the drawing and writing with their tutor. Then they take their book home and do that
No. So
activities.
remember, I had this discussion with you. It's a bit
Yeah.
tricky this year because it's in a book form. It actually worked
Mm.
better for us to have it on separate sheets.
Loose pages.
Um,
Mm.
Yeah, so we can't send that book home.
Okay.
There's no guarantee it's going to come back. So the
Mm.
tutors actually remove the sheets.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we've separated the entire book into separate
Oh.
sheets, and then we send home what we can send home because there's also printing, and on the other side of
On
the
the other
page.
side, that's what I was just saying now. How do you work
Yes.
around that? Because I've taken
So
out,
it's
for
tricky.
example, here's the the letter formation that you could cut out and send home.
Yeah,
And then there's something at the back. There's
at
the
the back.
story.
So
Yeah.
when
How have you
they
handled that?
can do it,
Yeah.
when they can do it, it gets sent home. Otherwise,
Yes.
it has to wait until the next week when we've covered that story.
Okay.
Then that sheet can go.
Okay. But I
So
think you're
it
managing
is
it.
tricky. Yeah, we
Mm.
are. Um,
Mm. Do you know what
yeah.
I'm just realizing now, Sunila? That some of it has nothing at the back, so it actually doesn't affect it all the time. It's
All
just
the
that, as you
time.
say, sometimes, yeah. The good
Sometimes.
thing about, okay, I'm getting caught up on one activity now, so thank you for that feedback. I think the good
Okay.
thing about this one that I just happen to have, if they do send that home, the one at the back in this case is a read aloud story, which is okay actually if it went home,
Yes.
because the tutor
Yes.
has her own read aloud story. So
Yes.
maybe that's a good thing for us to be mindful. I mean, we can't change it obviously now, but going
Yeah.
forward, just be mindful of what's at the back, you know.
Yes. And then we've also established WhatsApp groups, the coordinators with the parents. So when something goes home, she can explain it
Okay.
if there's anyone who questions or whatever. So the
Mm.
parent is kept informed of
Oh,
what's coming home.
that's a love. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they can immediately, ask her, and then
That's
she
such a
shares
good.
it with the whole group. Yeah,
That
that's
is such
working
a.
well.
That's a good tool.
Yeah,
Mm.
we've actually had parent meetings, information sessions, just
Mm.
explaining the whole process, giving
Mm.
them the guide. So it's still in, the stage where everyone is just getting used to it, and I hope that it's
Mm.
going to improve with time.
Mm. But Sunila, I can already hear progress from the last time
Oh,
that you
yes,
chat.
yes,
Yes, I can hear
yes.
that. That's great. And
Oh,
so Doug, I mean, I can hear you. There's a lot of tips there that you're thinking are so helpful. But I like what Sunila's doing, is because while there is a challenge with parents, there may be a challenge, we still want to give them the opportunity, you know?
yes.
So
Yeah,
somebody
quite
at
agree.
home might pick up that what you call that template and do it, you know, if she got a reminder on a WhatsApp.
Yeah,
So yeah, so while you are, as you said, Sunila, the tutors are the bridge actually.
Yes,
Yes, so
yes.
they're
We
providing what
don't,
might. Mm.
yeah, sorry, no, carry on.
No, so I like what you're saying, because while you're still believing that the parents have a role to play, you're creating that support. So you're doing the work
Yes,
and some of the meatier stuff, if you and saying, but you can still do this, mom, you know, and here's
yes.
a
yeah.
message for you. And Sunila, I think I must pause now unless there's someone else in the group who wants to talk about this, but that was very helpful. I was just thinking, Sunila, it's, you know, the packs that the tutors have got for themselves, eh? The guide. I'm not only talking to Sunila, sorry, I'm talking to everybody. So you've all got your guide, you know, which has got
Yeah,
all that. Remember, there's a guide attached to each of the children's packs. So that guide can go home,
Yes.
because the tutor doesn't need it. She's got her own, or he's got his own. Am I making
Yeah.
sense? So, you know, think about, I'm just going to plot that there for everybody in the room. Think about the guide, because every pack has got a guide attached to it. You know, let it not be a wasted resource that we're keeping in the storeroom. But if you can
yeah,
communicate to parents to say, this is the guide's coming home, you know, we've got our own guide, we'll do some activities. And remember, when the children come home with that activity, this is the one that you're doing, you know, and you can highlight to them. Just want to throw that there. I'm mindful of time. So I just thought that would be a helpful little hint. So thank you for the 3 people who shared. We're going to give everybody an opportunity later, some others in the group, to talk. So let's just move back to so we're just talking now about combining activities, and we heard from our colleagues how they do that, and we've also heard how some of our colleagues are managing this home after school setting. Thank you so much for that. Okay. All right. So this activity record, which there's an image of it at the bottom of the screen, we have placed in every learner activity book. It's at the back, right? And when we designed it, we know that children flourish when they get feedback, when they're motivated, when they can see, oh, I've done this activity, I've done that one, they get a ticket off. It's like sense of achievement. So it was designed to motivate children to see, like, look what they've managed to do. It was designed to help a parent, in your case, a tutor, to keep track of the activities. For example, if you've only seen them once this week, which ones have been done at home, which ones have been done in the center. It was designed for a parent to color in every time, and not a parent, a child to color in every time they've done something at home with someone. And then they can send the activity record back at the end of a term, to say, look at all the activities we've done. And there's even a little space for the tutor or the parent to write. So I'm mindful of the time now. And so I'm not going to do what we were going to do, which was to talk about the activity record. But the tip I want to give is, as a tutor, do that at the end of a session with the child. So they've done the story time. Then you go, before you go home, to go and tell mom what we did, let's color it in, choose your favorite crayon, color it in. Don't stop there. If you've got the time, say to them, what did you enjoy the most about today's activity? So they've colored it in. Now there's an engagement. So you're actually helping children to think about their learning, which is quite a complex skill. Yeah, but we do it in a fun way. And then, I've lost my train of thought. So I think maybe I would just like to know, as tutors, is this a tool? And remember this, we're not checking to scold. That's not how we work. We want to see if you're using the materials as effectively as they could be. So just an indication, and I'm actually going to ask somebody from the rest of the group who never got a chance, the group sitting behind Natalie's camera. Yeah, any thoughts about that activity record? Like, are you using it? Or if you're not using it, is it maybe what's preventing you from using it? Anybody in the team there? Let's see who we've got here. So, Yolene, any comments? Megan?
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Desiree.
Desiree.
Yes.
Desiree, you want to share your thoughts about the activity record?
We are using the activity record.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids are they are excited when we do that.
That's
because
wonderful.
That's when we praise them and we let them, how can I could say praten?
Ja, nou praat Afrikaans.
Ja, en dat help hulle om te verstaan hoe hulle vorder.
Yes.
En hoe goed hulle doen.
Yes.
Die activity record.
Good.
Thank you. Nou, ek vir hulle sê nou dat dit is omdat julle dit gedoen het en julle dit mooi gedoen, goed gedoen. Color vir ons hier so in, want jy weet ons verduidelik dit vir hulle so.
Wonderful. Anybody else? We're glad to hear you using it. Anybody else from that group? We've got Abigail, Nadesh, Brandeline, Paula, Peter. Anybody? Unless you feel that that's kind of...
Nee, dit is dat ons almal saam.
We all do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And Sunila, I was just thinking about the way you send activities home. maybe, you know, when the children come back on the following day or whenever the following week, you can say, did you do your, you know, which activity did you do at home with mom? Then they can color it in there in the center as well. But it is such a wonderful way to see your progress, through the children, to see their progress through the term. Great. Okay, now we're going to move on for the last half an hour. We're going to look at what I said in the beginning we would do, is just look at two of the time activities, story time and the drawing and the writing. And we want to give you some more tips when you tutor those two activities. So on the screen, I'm just going to read a few of the tips, and then we're going to spend some time on one of the activities. So some tips for you. When you're working with groups of children, look at that tutor on the mat with her group of children. They're doing a little book. So obviously, you can't spend the time in the session cutting and folding that little book. A parent would do that at home. But a little tip, and I can hear about Doug's affirming that that is what you all do, is to fold if you've got 4 children you're working with, fold those 4 little books beforehand. And we've given the tips on how to do that. So that's to help you manage and use your time effectively. I know some tutors in the past have felt like the children could fold their own little books, especially in grade 1. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. It can build up fine, motor skills, but we don't want it to detract from the opportunity to actually read and discuss the book. So just weigh that up. And then some tips for read alouds. There are 3 kinds of stories. I wonder if someone wants to just mention it. There are 3 kinds of stories. There's a big picture story in the time activity. What other kind of story is there?
Little books.
A little book I've just mentioned. And then the last one?
Library book, yes, normal book.
The read aloud, yeah. When the tutor reads to them. Right.
Yeah.
So here are 3 tips actually for the read aloud story. The one is that in the time books, in the time packs, you've got it. We've given you read aloud stories, right? So we don't want your first engagement with the read aloud story to be in the time that you're with the children. So the week before or the day before, take it out, practice it. Not for you to memorize it, but for you to do the following. You can think, where must I change my voice? Especially if there are characters in the story. Or maybe there are places where there are actions the children can do with you. You can mark it in your read aloud. Or, this is a good place where I can ask a question. And just a little tip about questions and read aloud stories. We don't want the flow of the story to be altered too much, but it is good to stop and ask now and again, what do you think is going to happen next? Why do you think that happened? So just find a few places where you can pause to ask a quick question. So that's to always practice reading your story aloud to yourself. The second tip for read alouds is to gather props. Now, let me say, you will notice that in the actual guides, we never talk about props. Because remember, for whom it was designed, we didn't want the parents to be, if they are at home, to still go and gather things to work with. We want them to be able to open up this, the activity, read the instruction and do it. But for a tutor, you've got more time to prepare. And we know that children love a prop, something physical, because they learn in the concrete. They learn in 3-dimensional. And so a good story prop will engage them, will spark their interest. You can use the prop before you read the story. You can use the prop during the story. You can even use the prop after reading the story. We're going to do that together now. But the thing about props is that we don't want you to be spending money and a lot of time and energy going to make them. So when you are looking for a prop for that story, there it is. Keep it simple. Keep it something that you can, even something that can stand in place of something else if you don't have the real thing. Now, that's the second tip. So the first one is read the story, get prepared for it. The second tip is gather a prop. And the third tip is that some of the stories in the pack have got a little code on it like that. In fact, every week there's a code on one activity. And we will keep encouraging you to, if you don't have a scanner, you can find out how to load a scanner. It's in the guide. You scan that, and that gives you a tip about that activity. For our purposes, we are highlighting that some stories have a little scan code, which means you can give your voice a break now and again and actually let the children listen to someone else read that story to them. It's the same story in the kit, but it's a lovely switch to hear someone else. So that's what we're actually going to do now. We've taken one of the stories that is scanned in term 2. It's called Tina is Great. It is in a grade 1 pack. Tina is Great. We're going to listen to the story. This would be the story you'd hear if you scanned it. We're going to listen to it. But I want you to listen with a purpose. So listen to the reader. Listen how she's changed her voice. All those wonderful things that make a story come alive. But I would like you to listen and think, what prop or props could I use if I was telling the story? So, yeah. And then, how could I use that prop during this, before the story, during or after? Okay. So, Christina, I'm right there. If I press on this, they'll still see the questions, right? Yeah.
Tina is great. Tina is 6 years old and lives with her mother and her little brother Ciso. She wakes up early, rubs her eyes, stretches her arms, and starts to get ready for school. In the bed next to hers, Ciso is still sleeping. Tina carefully makes her bed. Then she goes to wash herself. Tina, don't forget to brush your teeth, her mother reminds her. Look, Mummy, I'm brushing my teeth all by myself, says Tina. After she has brushed her teeth, Tina washes her face. Then she takes the washing basin and throws the dirty water away. Her mother is proud that Tina can do all these things by herself. Tina sees Auntie and Grandpa sitting outside chatting. Good morning, Grandpa and Auntie, she says. Good morning, Tina. Are you getting ready for school? Grandpa asks. I have finished washing myself and now I'm going to get dressed. Have a great day, Grandpa and Auntie, says Tina. Have a lovely day, Tina, says Grandpa. Tina hurries back to her bedroom and puts on her clothes for school. Look, Mummy, I can put my dress on all by myself, says Tina proudly. Then she buckles her shoes. I can buckle my shoes too, says Tina. She is ready for school. Goodness, Tina, what a big girl you are. You don't need me to help you anymore, says Mummy. I'll go and help Ciso get ready, and then you can walk to school together. After breakfast, Tina and Ciso walk to school together. At school, they see some goats. What are these goats doing here? Laughs Tina. Are they coming to learn? Tina and Ciso laugh and laugh. Then they run to join their friends in the classroom to listen to stories, sing songs, and do some counting. When the bell rings for break time, everyone goes outside to play with a ball. I love to make my bed. I love to wash and dress myself. But what I love most of all is to play, says Tina happily as she kicks the ball to her friend.
That story is in the term 2 grade 1 pack, and we have it's scanned so you can hear the story. And the good news is, I failed to say, that all the stories that are recorded in 3 languages. So whatever you are, whatever language you're working in, you can listen to it in that language. And Doug, this is a wonderful tool for you. As you said, you don't understand isiXhosa yourself. But imagine you doing a read aloud story, you are
Ah,
tutoring in English, but you can say to the children, hey, let's listen to the story in isiXhosa. And you can
it would be
find it.
wonderful.
It is wonderful. And they'll make the connections between the language of it. So I thought that will be just a nice.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you found something that is helpful for you and your children. Okay, so I'm going to put up our little discussion slide, and just remember the question. It's on the screen. Could you think of a prop that you could use for the story? Simple prop. And how would you use that before, during, or after? Okay, so I'm going to go with the top of the discussion slide. Yolene, do you have any thoughts for us?
Hello?
Ah, is that Yolene?
Yes, it's me.
Hello, Yolene. Did you have any thoughts about a prop you could use for the story?
Yeah, I would use like I make faces like small little faces, like a baby face and the sister's face, and just put it on, just to let them see the reality
Oh,
of the characters, like little
oh,
round
the
things
characters in this.
in the story. Then I would
Okay.
just put them on, and then the kids can literally see this is the mom, this is
Oh, lovely.
so yeah.
Okay.
And I would use
And
it
how? I was
during the
going to
story.
ask you, how would you use it?
Yeah, I would use it during the story. Like someone would tell the story, because normally that's what we do. We have been going to schools and then being telling stories. So we
Yes.
make our own props. And while someone
Yes.
is telling the story, then we got the props on, the faces on, so they will
Okay. So
realize that. Yeah.
thank you. That's a good thought. Let's hear from Megan. Megan, do you have another idea for a prop, a different kind of prop?
She just went to the toilet.
Okay, let's see who else is there. Who's next on the screen?
Paula is here.
Hello, Paula.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so sometimes wanneer ons nou nie props het nie, en dan wat maak
Ja.
ons dan? Dan is een van ons dan beeld ons die karakter uit.
Okay.
Ja, so dis wat
So you
ons baie
act it
baie-
out.
Ja, dan beeld ons die karakter uit.
Sure.
So dan vertel ons basically die hele story vir hulle oor met ons characters.
With your character. So you and
Yes.
Yolene are talking about the characters being, either you have a prop for the character or you are the character,
Yes.
right? Thank you. Brandeline, Nadesh, Peter, Desiree, any of you with another idea for a prop for this story?
Hi,
Hi.
Desiree speaking.
Hello, Desiree.
We also use the kids to interact. So the
Yes.
kids can also be part of the characters in the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So you all are mentioning like how to engage the children, right?
Yeah.
That is perfect. I was just wondering, okay, let me give you an idea. So besides the character that can be the prop, if you think about what this little girl is doing, what is this little girl doing? Brandeline, what is this child doing in the story?
She's getting ready for school.
She's getting ready for school. So what kind of props could you use that help that the children can engage with before they read the story?
Like the books
Before
that they
before we read the story,
Yeah, what could you do?
they can have the books. They already have their bags, so maybe you
There
can
we go.
use
They can pack their bags.
you can pack the bags and
They
stuff
can
like
pack
that.
the bags, and you can
Yeah.
talk about what are you taking to school, what's going in your bag.
Yeah.
What does she do? She's brushing her teeth, she's getting dressed. So what props could you use for that?
Yeah, we can get them like use their uniform. They got
Right.
their shoes on, so maybe one of them can volunteer to like tie the shoes, or they are very excited to
Exactly.
show them.
Good. Right. And then while you're doing that, you're saying, what is she doing? So you're building up the language, right? I'm
Yeah.
tying my shoes. Does your shoes have buckles or does your shoes have laces, all for school? So you're getting the idea that the prop is a visual aid to to either help them to get into the story or help them engage during the story. Great. I'm going to give one more round to ask anybody else on the screen there that hasn't had a chance. Do you have one more thought? Because then we can move on.
No, it's fine.
Okay, sure. Right. So I'm going back to that slide. So I hope you're writing down something from this slide that is going to help you make your story time more effective. I'm showing the slide once more. Just make your notes. Okay. Okay. And in the last few minutes that we have together, I want to spend some time talking with you about the drawing and the writing step, which in the time materials is the day 2 activity. And we want to talk a little bit about a tutor making this activity. How do you engage with this activity? So here are some tips for you. The one is that we would definitely encourage you as a tutor to keep all the stationery that the children are going to need for writing and drawing, that you keep it in a box. So a simple box, I mean, it could be a Tupperware container, it could be an old ice cream container, could be a shoe box, but that the tutor keeps the stationery that the children need. Now, I don't need to tell you, but you know how long and hard it takes first for the children to take a pencil out of their bag or a crayon out of their bag, and then the pencil's too short or the crayons are too tiny. So if you keep it, then what happens is when you're doing drawing and writing, you take out your box and open it, and there are maybe 2 boxes of crayons in there. You have already made sure that the pencils are sharpened. So this is it's a practical tip, but it's really important because the children can't do this activity without the right tools. So that's the one tip. Have your own box. Keep the stationery for the group in that box. Yeah, even put your name on the box so that, and then at the end of the session, you make sure what must be replenished. Must I speak to my program manager or coordinator, but what must still go in there for next time? The second tip is that when children are writing, young children, please do not let them write in lined paper, on lined paper. So make sure that the paper is unlined, blank. And to think about why we would make such a big deal about this. I want you to think about young children and their fine motor skills. So that's still developing, right? So pencil grip is still developing. When they're writing, they're sometimes going to write, big letters, and sometimes the letters are going to be small. So you don't want them preoccupied with trying to fit their thoughts, their writing in between lines. Then we're getting them focused on things we don't want them to be focused on. This activity is all about the children putting an idea onto paper. Shanaz mentioned early on, the children, they've had the story. Now they're going to write about something about that spark, that story has sparked in them. By the way, we even tell you what, we direct you to the kind of writing activity to do. So we don't want them preoccupied with trying to get it into a line and spelling it correctly and making the formation accurate. That's not the focus here. So please do not really try as much not to use lined paper and lined books. And then the last tip before we get you to watch a little video clip of a tutor working with a child, if you have got a group of children, if you're looking at that bottom picture, there is a tutor there. She's got a group of 4 children, and they are actually doing a writing and a drawing and a writing activity. So drawing and writing, out of all the activities in the time materials, it's probably the one that's going to take the longest to sort of grasp if you really want to tutor it well. So here's a little tip. In a group, you might give the activity, you might say to them, as this activity does say, they'll say to them, draw, Tina, and draw your favorite part of the story. The children are asked to do that. In your 20 minutes or so, we are encouraging you to help only 1 or 2. So the whole group has the activity, but you focus in on 1 or 2 of the children in that 15, 20 minutes. Because next week, when you're doing writing and drawing again, you can focus on another 2 children. So everybody's engaged, but you are doing these 3 things with 1 or 2 children. And there are some tips. As they're drawing, talk about their drawings. Tell them to tell you what's the line we always say, tell us about your drawing. Let the children talk. And Doug, you mentioned again language. Their home language is English. Let them talk in the language that they are comfortable in. If there's someone in the group that can translate that, you can ask. If there isn't, you're getting the children to talk language. And then if it's a house, you'll say, oh, in English, this is a house. You can point. So use their language isn't a deficit. Their language is something that's going to help build on these skills, Okay, so talk about their drawings. You can't do it with the whole group. Just focus on this one today or this one today. Then when they are writing, this, we're not obsessed about correct spelling. Now, don't misunderstand me. Children will have to spell correctly for others to understand what they're writing. But young children are only on their journey. They're only starting. So they're going to try. If they scribble, they're going to scribble if they're in grade R. Your job as they write, so you've spoken about their drawings, and then you say, oh, don't you want to write what you just told me? And let them try. And as they're writing, you take note of a sound that they're using correctly or a part of a word that they've written correctly. And then affirm that. So let's say they wrote, Tina's kicking the ball. Are you with me? And they've got the B right. They didn't get the rest right, but they got the B. You say, look at that. You're right. B is for ball. That's all you have to do. And then if they're in grade R, they may not want to write. Then you ask them. So you said Tina is kicking the ball. Would you like me to write that for you? And then you can write that for them. So really, we want to say again, the purpose of the writing is not that they are spelling correctly, is that they are trying to match letters to sounds they hear, and they're trying to communicate that, they're trying to put their oral thoughts on paper. That's the focus. So we would encourage, I hope that out of these 3 tips, something has resonated with you. So I'm going to once again just keep just a second on the screen. Maybe you want to jot down something that you want to definitely tackle or do differently. Just write that down, okay? Okay. What we're going to do now, it's the last activity for the day, is we're going to watch a tutor actually supporting a grade 1 child. And I want to be very specific because we wouldn't expect a grade R child to be doing this kind of writing. Well, there may be some grade R children near the end of the year, but this is a tutor working with a grade 1 child. She's not using the time materials, so you're not going to see the time materials. You're going to see other materials. That's fine. But we want you to, while you're watching, please write this down. Take note of how this tutor is supporting this child's writing. And then I am going to ask you afterwards, we'll go around in our discussion little slide there, to tell us what's the one thing you notice that she's doing well in helping this child to write, and what stands out for you. Okay, look, the questions are going to disappear once I play the video, so maybe just take a picture of the questions or write it down. I'm not going to play the whole video. I'm going to stop after about 2 minutes. Oh, you can still see the questions.
I can see my children improve a lot. I've got the 8 children that we do on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It's 4-4. Everybody couldn't write like. They write U-L-U-K. But as we go on, they learn how to write the word like. But I can see now that there is sentences that they are doing on their own.
For us, it's been very positive. The children who've come to Rainbow Room, as we call it, have benefited so much from it. Not always visible, but the confidence level has gone up. And once a child feels confident, everything else falls into place so much easier.
Begin the writing process by talking about the book or sequence story, going back to some of the pictures, and ask the children what they would like to write about. Help the children to think of a sentence.
On, or where are you when you're going up and down? Are you on that? On that? What are you on? What is this funny thing here?
If children give a one-word answer, help them to make it into a sentence.
Okay, so we're going to write, I am going up, I am going down on that seesaw.
Show children how to clap each of the words in the sentence, or count them on their fingers.
Going down on the seesaw.
And then draw a line for each word. Encourage children to try and write words on their own. You can write words or word parts for them if necessary. When the child has finished writing the sentence, ask them to read it while pointing to each word as they read. Now ask the children to draw a picture to match their sentence. Once children are able to write longer sentences, you can use sentence.
Sorry, I'm not going to play the rest of the video. I'm just going to pause there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up our discussion slide again. And let's see who would like to start off for us. And the question was, what does the tutor do to help the child? And which of her strategies stand out for you? So who would like to start, and then we'll decide how we're going to go. Okay, because I know we've got to be out here in 5 minutes. Let's see, Anisha, would you like to just share one thing that stood out for you? Anisha.
Hi.
Hi, Anisha.
Hello.
Hello.
So the one thing that stood out to me was the way she clapped for the syllables and for the sentences.
Yeah.
That was the one
Good
thing
point.
because
Because
the kids sometimes they don't understand the words that you are saying.
so you're quite right. Thank you for that. Whose words were they clapping? Were they clapping the tutor's words or their own words?
Their own words.
Their own words. It was her sentence, but the tutor is helping her clap this, not the syllables. In this case, she was clapping the words. So her sentence was, I'm going up and down on a seesaw. So she was saying, I am going up. Right. So maybe Peter, if he's there, or Paula, why do you think, okay, sorry, not, I didn't mean to call your name out now. What I was wanting to say, what Anisha said, why would we want to, what's this clapping about? It's actually helping them to hear that what they're saying, you know, your spoken words sound like this, they just ramble on. When you've got to get down on paper, you must be able to hear the separate parts. So when you clap it, you are giving them a tool to hear. I am on the seesaw. Yeah, that's why you clap. So that's a good tip. Peter, Paula, Brandeline, I'm just seeing the next three. Any other tip any other tool, that strategy she used that you'd like, that stood out for you?
Hello.
Hi, Peter.
Yes.
Yes, you want to tell us something that stood out for you?
The part that stood out to me the most was encourage the children to write their own words.
Exactly. That, you know, that is so key. She didn't say to them, let's write this about the story. Hey, she said, what would you like to write about? And in time, in the time materials, that's always what it'll direct the child maybe to say, make a list, but you're not telling them what to put on the list. So it's the children's ideas. That is so key. Thank you, Peter. Paula, Brandeline, or Nadesh, I'm just going in that middle row. Anything else that stood out for you? A strategy she used? Or anybody else, okay? If they're not ready to share it. Okay, let me give you a tip. So after she got them to say their own ideas, which is what Peter mentioned, after she then said, let's clap what you want to say, she did something else to get it onto paper.
She draw the lines of
she drew the lines of the words that they clicked. Exactly. And it isn't about, this is a short word, it's a small line, this is, it's about every space is a word. So she's giving what we like to call a scaffold support. That's very good. And then lastly, who was that shared with us now? Sorry?
It was me, Yolene.
Hello, Yolene. Thank you.
Yeah.
So then anybody else? We haven't heard Abigail's voice. We haven't heard Brandeline, I don't think. Maybe we can just hear when she got the child to actually now put that ideas on paper. Was she stopping and correcting everything?
That's it. Hi, this is Nadesh speaking.
Hi, Nadesh.
No, she was not correcting the child. She gave the child a free will and his own choice.
And right, to try and write the words. And that's exactly what we want to encourage. So thank you so just to end it, that's a lovely structure, especially with, sorry for the noise here. That's a lovely structure for grade 1 children. That's what it is. Get them to say their thoughts, clap the words, draw the lines for them, and let them experiment on the lines. The good news is that in that notes for tutors, we've actually put on one of those pages, we've put those steps down so you can refer back to them. Okay. Right. Let me just get here. So I hope that you got some lovely practical tips today that can help you facilitate, particularly the story time and the drawing and the writing. I hope you got some tips for combining. I hope you got some tips for how you can share the materials with the home. And I know, Doug, I hope you got some tips because you raised it for just how to manage the fact that the children are bringing a language that maybe you don't understand. It is tough. Maybe you can ask your team to have someone who might be able to translate for you. But I think we gave you 2 tips on how to actually celebrate the children's language as well.